On August 27, local time, KLM Royal Dutch Airlines announced the delivery of its first Airbus A321neo aircraft. Simultaneously, the airline revealed plans to invest €7 billion in aircraft modernization over the next few years, with no plans to include Boeing aircraft in this investment. KLM, with over a century of history, holds the title of the world's oldest airline, still operating under its original name, and is one of Europe's top 10 airlines. Historically, KLM was a loyal Boeing customer, with 99 of its 111 aircraft currently sourced from Boeing. Losing such a long-standing client marks yet another blow to Boeing. Around the same time, on August 24, NASA announced that, due to astronaut safety concerns, Boeing's Starliner spacecraft, currently stationed at the International Space Station, would return to Earth unmanned. Originally, 2 astronauts were scheduled to return aboard, but will now remain at the station until February 2025, when they are expected to return via SpaceX's spacecraft, Boeing's direct competitor. The Starliner, launched on June 5 this year, was initially set to stay at the ISS for just 8 days. Now, the astronauts are expected to stay in space for over 8 months. This is yet another humiliation for Boeing, which in recent years has been mired in a string of negative incidents. In 2018-19, the latest 737 MAX model suffered 2 fatal crashes within 6 months, killing all passengers on board and leading to the global grounding of the aircraft. Boeing later admitted to design flaws in the flight control software. However, Boeing's issues are not confined to 1 or 2 specific models. The company has faced widespread and continuous technical and safety issues across various aircraft. In January, an Alaska Airlines Boeing 737 MAX suffered a serious incident when a cabin door suddenly detached mid-flight, though no injuries occurred due to timely intervention. March saw 4 separate incidents involving Boeing aircraft, including engine fires, tire detachments, runway overruns, and hydraulic fluid leaks, all within a single week. In May, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, completed a 6-day audit of Boeing and one of its major suppliers, uncovering widespread safety lapses in production, where workers often ignored quality control protocols. The management was found to have systematically overlooked or even concealed these issues. Long-standing allegations from within the company indicated that Boeing had abandoned its culture of prioritizing quality. The FAA's findings only confirmed what was already suspected. Amid this public scrutiny, Boeing's financial health has also taken a significant hit. In 2019, the company posted its first annual loss in 20 years, amounting to $630 million. Over the next 3 years, Boeing recorded staggering losses of $11.9 billion, $4.3 billion, and $5 billion respectively. In 2023, the situation appeared to stabilize slightly, with the delivery of 528 commercial aircraft and total group revenues of $77.8 billion, a 16% increase from 2022. However, the company still posted a net loss of $2.2 billion. By the first half of 2024, Boeing's financial condition had worsened again, with revenues down by over 10% compared to the same period last year, and losses doubling. Despite this, Boeing still maintains a market value of around $100 billion, although, since 2019, its shareholder equity has been negative. As of June 2024, Boeing's net liabilities amounted to nearly $18 billion, making the company technically insolvent. With $4.7 billion in short-term debt and over $53 billion in long-term debt, Boeing's $12.6 billion in available Cash and securities offers limited relief. In the highly competitive aircraft market, Boeing continues to lag behind its primary rival, Airbus, in both aircraft deliveries and new orders, with the gap widening to nearly double in recent years. Given this persistent stream of bad news and no clear short-term solutions, even in the U.S., questions are being raised about how much longer Boeing can continue absorbing losses and whether it might face bankruptcy. However, despite Boeing's dire financial situation and operational struggles, the likelihood of bankruptcy is virtually non-existent. Boeing's status as the most critical company in the U.S. aerospace industry, and its vital role in America's remaining stronghold in manufacturing, makes its survival a matter of national interest. Aircraft and their components have long been America's top export. Historically, multiple American companies were capable of producing large commercial jets. But today, only Boeing remains. For the foreseeable future, Boeing will remain indispensable to both the U.S. civil aviation and military sectors. The U.S. government is unlikely to allow Boeing to fail or undergo a major asset restructuring, as such actions could disrupt the company's long-term production plans, research, and overall aerospace capabilities. Despite years of massive losses and negative shareholder equity, Boeing retains significant market value precisely because of this strategic importance. After weathering the crises caused by the 737 MAX groundings and the global pandemic, Boeing has managed to rebound somewhat. The company's order book has steadily improved since 2020, with more than 1,000 new orders added last year alone. As of the end of 2023, Boeing had around 5,600 orders for commercial aircraft. With Boeing delivering 528 planes last year, these orders ensure that production lines will remain fully operational for the next few years. While Boeing remains in a downturn, it continues to receive large orders, in part due to the unique characteristics of the aviation market. This market is dominated by a few key players, primarily Boeing and Airbus, which together form a global duopoly. Other manufacturers hold minimal influence, and even potential challengers like China's COMAC are still years away from posing a serious threat. As previously mentioned, Airbus has received more orders than Boeing in recent years, even though the two companies are comparable in size. After securing record-breaking orders for consecutive years, Airbus is likely reaching its production capacity limits. Given the broader European economic environment, Airbus is neither willing nor capable of rapidly expanding its production capacity to meet all potential customer demand. However, for many airlines, the need to upgrade or expand their fleets is non-negotiable. If the waiting time for popular Airbus planes becomes too long, or if they can't secure a favorable price, airlines will be forced to return to Boeing for orders. Thus, Boeing is unlikely to face imminent collapse as long as its main aircraft models maintain some level of market demand, at least until new competitors fully enter the market. This buffer period could last over a decade, during which time Boeing may even see temporary rebounds. For instance, it wouldn't be surprising if Boeing reports a return to profitability in the next few years, and its stock price strongly rebounds. However, even if its financial indicators improve, it remains uncertain whether Boeing can address, or at least mitigate the ongoing issues with the quality and safety of its aircraft, and truly make Boeing great again. From a long-term perspective, the outlook isn't optimistic, as Boeing's leadership seems to be avoiding confronting key structural problems. Boeing is currently experiencing its worst operational crisis since its founding. Aside from the frequent quality issues severely damaging the trust of both airlines and passengers, the company is also facing an unprecedented decline in the competitiveness of its products. Boeing faces a unique dilemma. While it claims to have a comprehensive product lineup, Its most popular single-aisle aircraft, the Boeing 737, first flew in 1967. If you count from its development inception in 1964, the aircraft is now 60 years old. Its main competitor, the Airbus A320, first entered service in 1987, 20 years later, and incorporated more advanced technologies from the start. For example, the A320 was the first civilian aircraft to use digital fly-by-wire controls in its flight control system. Although Boeing has managed to maintain a rough balance with the A320 through successive modifications of the 737, the longer this drags on, the more the 737's outdated design limits further improvements. While the A320 family remains more adaptable, in an attempt to reverse the situation, Boeing introduced the 737 MAX, which it claimed was fully updated. However, many of the aircraft's fundamental design elements could not be changed, forcing Boeing to patch issues with software fixes. To regain market share quickly, Boeing used its influence to expedite the FAA's certification of the 737 MAX, resulting in a rushed process and fatal flaws that led to several tragic accidents. Yet Boeing still has no choice but to continue pushing the 737 MAX, with patch after patch, which explains why it continues to lag behind Airbus in the single-aisle aircraft market. Furthermore, China's Comac C919, which competes directly with both the 737 and A320, could potentially increase its production in the coming years, posing another threat to the 737's market share. Historically, Boeing was known for its sharp strategic insights into long-term trends in the aviation industry, and for developing aircraft to meet future market demands. This acumen was a key factor in its dominance of the U.S. commercial aircraft industry and its long-standing rivalry with Airbus. For example, in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, both Boeing and Airbus initiated the development of new flagship models. At that time, long-haul passengers typically flew to hub airports and then transferred to other flights. Airbus predicted that this trend would continue and invested heavily in developing the Airbus A380, the largest passenger aircraft ever built, capable of carrying more than 800 passengers. Boeing, on the other hand, believed that passengers preferred direct flights and would rather avoid layovers if possible. Therefore, Boeing focused on developing a long-range aircraft that didn't need to be particularly large, but could fly between almost any two cities directly. This led to the development of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Subsequent market trends proved Boeing's prediction to be more accurate, and the 787 has since become one of Boeing's most important models, while Airbus halted A380 production in 2021. However, Boeing's forecast underestimated the growing preference for single-aisle aircraft, like the A320 and 737, which have become the most popular models among airlines in recent years. According to Boeing's traditional development timeline, after the 787 was completed, the next step should have been the development of a replacement for the aging 737. However, Boeing did not pursue this path and has not developed a new model since the 787. Meanwhile, Airbus quickly introduced the A350 after the A380's failure, which is now a strong competitor to the 787. Despite Boeing's strong technological reserves, the company seems unwilling or unable to develop a new model to replace the 737. The development of modern aircraft takes a long time, with a new model typically taking anywhere from 7 to 15 years from development to certification. While Boeing may appear to have time, it could only have 1 or 2 more product cycles left to turn things around before it runs out of resources. Moreover, Boeing's current approach suggests either a lack of willingness to develop new models or significant organizational challenges in managing engineering projects. Despite its technological capabilities, Many analysts point to Boeing's merger with McDonnell Douglas in the late 1990s as a turning point, with McDonnell Douglas executives eventually taking control of Boeing's management. These executives prioritized short-term financial performance over engineering excellence, cutting R&D spending and sidelining experienced engineers and pilots. This shift in corporate culture, from engineering-driven to finance-driven, is seen as a major factor in Boeing's decline. Boeing's decision to move its headquarters from Seattle to Chicago in 2001, ostensibly for tax benefits, was widely interpreted as an effort to distance the company's management from its engineering roots. Additionally, Boeing's decision to open a new assembly plant in South Carolina in 2009 has also been controversial due to the plant's poor quality control and chaotic management. Many of the recent accidents involving Boeing planes have been traced back to aircraft assembled at the South Carolina facility. Despite widespread criticism, Boeing has continued to increase production at the plant due to its lower labor costs and weak union presence, further prioritizing profits over quality and safety. The root cause of these issues can be traced to broader changes in American corporate culture over the past few decades. Starting in the 1980s, companies began to shift from a product-focused to a finance-focused model, driven by the belief that maximizing shareholder value was the ultimate goal of business. This shift was epitomized by figures like Jack Welch, the former CEO of General Electric, who popularized strategies such as outsourcing, stock buybacks, and aggressive cost-cutting to boost short-term profits. While these strategies may benefit shareholders in the short term, they often come at the expense of long-term sustainability. Boeing's decision to sell its historic Wichita plant in 2005 is an example of this short-term thinking. The plant was sold to Spirit AeroSystems for $900 million. Only for Boeing to repurchase it years later for $4.7 billion, after production quality at Spirit had declined. Such decisions may have temporarily boosted Boeing's stock price, but they ultimately weakened the company's long-term competitiveness. In summary, Boeing's current struggles are a reflection of deeper issues in American manufacturing. The relentless focus on short-term financial metrics, driven by a strong U.S. dollar and an over-reliance on financial engineering, has eroded the competitiveness of American industry. If Boeing, one of the most iconic American manufacturers, cannot build reliable airplanes, it is a symptom of a larger problem facing the entire sector. As the most significant export product of the U.S. today, the overly strong U.S. dollar has pushed the overall capital return rate in the U.S. to a level that is disproportionate to its productivity. Essentially, this mirrors the Dutch disease, caused by an over-reliance on the export of primary resources. So, even without considering more complex factors like education, social governance, and infrastructure, simply looking at investment versus return, without a clear technological edge or protection through tariffs and non-tariff barriers, making heavy investments in U.S. manufacturing right now is hardly a rational financial decision. The fact that Boeing, a century-old company, is struggling to build reliable airplanes is just a symptom of a much larger wave. While preparing for this show, another financial news story emerged. Intel might be selling off its chip factory. Just this March, Intel announced that it had secured $8.5 billion in U.S. government subsidies, along with an $11 billion loan commitment. Yet even with such significant subsidies, Intel's CEO informed shareholders that either the chip plant must be sold, or they must accept losses in that department until at least 2030, with no guarantee of profitability beyond that point. The immediate reaction from the stock market? Intel's stock price soared. Given this, a smart, rational, and shareholder-focused American CEO's decision should be clear.